Halo changed the first-person shooters forever. Back in 2001, Combat Evolved wasn't just another console shooter. It helped define the genre what it could be on the OG Xbox. And more than 2 decades later, Halo Campaign Evolved revisits the legendary adventure with a complete visual overhaul and a number of gameplay improvements that aimed at modern audiences. But while this remake delivered stunning graphics and some genuinely smart quality of life upgrades, there's some technical hiccups and controversial design choices that kept it from becoming the definitive version many longtime fans were hoping for. But let's find out what this is all about, shall we? The campaign picks up shortly after humanity suffers a crushing defeat at the Reach. Master Chief and Cortana escape aboard the Pillar of Autumn, only to crash land on a mysterious ring-shaped megastructure simply known as Halo. At first, survival is the only priority, but the Covenant forces are everywhere, and scattered UNSC survivors are needing rescuing, and every mission feels like a desperate attempt to stay alive. But the deeper you venture into Halo, the bigger the mystery becomes, and slowly it becomes clear that the ancient installation wasn't created as a superweapon for conquest. Instead, it serves as a prison designed to contain one of the deadliest threats in the galaxy, the Flood. A horrifying parasite capable of infecting and consuming intelligent life on an unimaginable scale. But what I still love about Halo's story is how naturally it escalates. It begins as a grounded military conflict, but gradually transforms into something much larger and more terrifying. Every major revelation raises the stakes, and by the end, you're dealing with the consequences that extend far beyond one battlefield. Cortana continues to be one of the strongest parts of the experience, and she isn't just there to explain the objectives. She gives the story personality and helps balance Master Chief's quiet, stoic nature. And even after all these years, the campaign remains engaging from beginning to end. The biggest difference you'll notice immediately is the visual presentation powered by the Unreal Engine 5. Halo has never looked more impressive, and the iconic ring world finally feels as massive as players always imagined. Dense forests is swayed with detailed vegetation, Forerunner architecture looks appropriately ancient and mysterious, and the dynamic lighting dramatically changes the mood across every environment. Whether you're exploring the narrow metallic corridors or fighting through the wide open valleys, nearly every location benefits from the modern technology. Character models also receive a significant upgrade, giving both allies and enemies more detailed animations and facial expressions. The atmosphere is particularly impressive during the nighttime sequences, where the lighting and shadows create a much stronger sense of tension than the original game could. Performance options are fairly generous. Console players can choose between higher quality graphics modes or a smoother performance mode targeting 60 FPS, while the PC users get additional settings including DLSS, FSR, XeSS, and frame generation support. On the audio side, the remake does equally fantastic job. Weapons sound heavier and more impactful, and explosions echo naturally depending on the environment. The ambient effects helps Halo feel more alive than ever. And of course, the highlight is still the soundtrack by Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore's legendary score that remains memorable today, and the dynamic music transitions help every battle feel more cinematic. This is easily one of the strongest aspects of the remake.
Alright, Chief, what's next?
Thankfully, the gameplay still captures everything that made Halo special in the first place. Combat remains built around the player's freedom, and you're constantly making decisions with which weapons to carry, whether to attack aggressively or defensively, when using grenades, and how to take advantage of vehicles or the environment. That sandbox approach continues to be incredibly satisfying. At the same time, the remake introduces several improvements that modernizes the overall experience. Master Chief now has a dedicated sprint, making exploration feel faster without completely changing Halo's pacing. The controls have been updated to match the modern shooters, making aiming and movement much more comfortable than the original release. The vehicle handling also feels noticeably smoother. You're driving the Warthog, which is more responsive than before, and making the game much more larger outdoor encounters much easier to navigate. Another welcome improvement comes with the health system. Instead of constantly searching for every corner for medikits after difficult encounters, your health gradually regenerates once combat settles down, and your shields regenerate quickly over time. It streamlines the pacing without completely removing the importance of staying alive during firefights. And one of my favorite additions is the ability to store equipment. Items like active camouflage, overshields no longer have to be active at the moment once you find them. Instead, you can save them for tougher encounters, adding a layer of tactical decision making that wasn't present like before. The sandbox itself also feels expanded, additional weapons that later Halo games introduced with more variety into combat, than enemy placements that have been remixed to returning players and several familiar encounters have been redesigned. Perhaps the biggest improvement is the library. For many players, it's easily one of the most repetitive levels in the original game. This remake restructures the mission enough to reduce its repetitiveness, while preserving its identity, making it significantly more enjoyable to replay. Speaking of replayability, it also gets a hefty boost with new missions focusing on Sergeant Johnson's extra story for content, while the campaign remix mode introduces randomized enemies and weapon combinations that make repeated playthroughs feel fresh. These additions give longtime Halo fans plenty of reasons to return after finishing the main campaign. Impressive as this remix is, it isn't without its problems, and one of the issues is on the technical side. While Unreal Engine 5 allows incredible visuals, it also introduces the occasional shader compilations, stutters, and especially during the larger combat encounters. Frame drops briefly and hitching can interrupt otherwise smooth firefights, and reflective surfaces sometimes can be noticeable with the shimmering. And they're not constant problems, but it happens often to be distracting. And the cutscenes also present a few frustrations. Being that the cutscenes are being locked at 30 frames per second creates a noticeable disconnect from the gameplay. And on certain displays, some of the scenes suffer from inconsistent frame pacing or slight audio synchronization issues. The more controversial decisions involves the game's online requirements. Even if the players are purchasing a physical copy still need the internet connection for authentication, along with a mandatory account linking before accessing the game. That's a disappointing requirement for what is a fundamental single-player experience. And finally, longtime Halo fans also noted the subtle gameplay differences compared to the original game, with certain enemy behaviors, combat timings, and even bits of dialogue have changed. None of these adjustments completely ruin the experience, but they also make me feel less pure preservation of the combat involved, more than this modern reinterpretation. Whether that's a positive or negative will largely depend on how here are with the original game, but to me, I had no problem with this at all. Halo campaign evolves succeeds because it understands what the original was so memorable. It doesn't abandon Halo's signature sandbox gameplay, but instead it builds upon with smarter mechanics, better controls, and meaningful quality of life improvements, and one of the best visual upgrades the series has ever seen. The revamped presentation is outstanding, and the audio design remains phenomenal, and the gameplay additions like stored equipment, expanded weapon variety, and the redesigned library makes this version feel fresh without losing its identity. Unfortunately, the technical stutters, inconsistent cutscene performance, and unnecessary online requirements prevent the experience from reaching its full potential. I will also feel like I like to see more complete multiplayer offering to give this package a complete greater longevity. But still, despite those shortcomings, this remains an excellent reimagining of one of the game's most influential shooters, and for that I give Halo Campaign Evolved a 4 out of 5. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the gamer section, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss upcoming content.